Man insults Elon Musk on a first-class flight, instantly regrets it when the truth is revealed. If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. The first-class lounge at LAX was bustling with activity as passengers for Flight 291 to Tokyo Narita prepared to board. Among them was Liam Carter, a self-made tech entrepreneur whose startup had just reached a $1 billion valuation. He strutted through the lounge like he owned the place, his tailored suit and designer watch screaming success. Liam's social media was a curated highlight reel of his achievements: private jets, exclusive events, and captions like, "Innovation isn't a choice. It's my DNA." He thrived on attention and had no problem showing off. When the flight attendant welcomed him aboard with a polished smile, he barely acknowledged her, stepping into the luxurious first-class cabin like it was built just for him. In seat 1A, Liam made himself comfortable, draping his blazer over the armrest and pulling out his noise-canceling headphones. The seat next to him, 1B, was still empty, and he smirked at the thought of having the cabin's prime real estate all to himself. That is, until the man in the hoodie and sneakers walked in. Liam adjusted his laptop and began drafting a new post for his followers, something about how visionaries disrupt, dreamers follow. He barely noticed when someone slid into seat 1B. The man wasn't what Liam expected in first class. He wore a plain hoodie, jeans, and sneakers that looked well past their prime. A baseball cap shadowed most of his face, and he carried himself with an air of calm indifference. Liam glanced up briefly, unimpressed, and went back to his laptop. "Evening," the man said politely as he settled in. "Yeah, sure," Liam muttered, not bothering to look up. The man adjusted his seat and placed a simple water bottle on the tray table. Liam smirked to himself. Water? Seriously? Why even bother flying first class? He thought. The flight attendant arrived moments later, offering champagne. The man declined with a quiet, "Just water's fine." Liam couldn't help but roll his eyes, making sure the gesture was obvious enough to be seen. Great, he thought. 12 hours next to some random nobody who doesn't even know how to enjoy first class properly. As the plane climbed to cruising altitude, Liam leaned back in his seat, sipping champagne. Every detail of first class, from the reclining pods to the gourmet menu, felt like a reward he believed he'd earned. The man in 1B, however, seemed oblivious to the luxury around him. He quietly scrolled through his phone, occasionally sipping from his water bottle. This only fueled Liam's disdain. Why even bother flying first class if you're going to act like you're in coach? He thought. Liam's need for attention kicked in. He placed his empty champagne flute down with a loud clink and turned toward the man. "So, what do you do?" Liam asked, his tone oozing faux interest. "Tech," the man replied simply, not looking up. Liam grinned. "Ah, same here. Bet you've got some stories," he said, ready to launch into one of his own. But the man only nodded, giving no indication he wanted to continue the conversation. Annoyed by the lack of engagement, Liam's tone shifted. "You know, the tech world's full of people who get way too much credit for half-baked ideas," he said, his voice raised just enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Take Elon Musk, for example. Everyone acts like he's a genius, but he's just a hype machine. Tesla? Overrated. SpaceX? A money pit." The man paused mid-scroll but didn't respond, a faint smile playing on his lips. Encouraged by the lack of reaction, Liam leaned forward, his voice dripping with mockery. "You think I'm wrong? Trust me, Musk is more PR than innovation." Still, the man said nothing, his calm demeanor only irritating Liam further. As the flight settled into a steady rhythm, Liam couldn't shake his irritation. The man in 1B seemed completely unfazed by his comments, responding only with polite nods or faint smiles. It was infuriating. Liam thrived on reactions, and his seatmate was giving him nothing. Letting out a loud sigh, Liam leaned forward again, determined to draw the man into conversation. "Let me guess," he said, his voice edged with sarcasm. "You're one of those crypto guys? Or is it AI? Everyone's jumping on those bandwagons these days." The man finally looked up, just briefly. His expression was unreadable, calm but not dismissive. "Not exactly," he said, before turning back to his phone. The ambiguity only added fuel to Liam's ego. He smirked, ready to launch into another critique. "Well, if you're in tech, you must have an opinion on Musk. Everyone does. What do you think about him?" For the first time, the man hesitated. "He's done some interesting things," he said, his voice neutral. Liam laughed, loudly enough to draw a few curious glances from other passengers. "Interesting things? That's putting it lightly. The guy's a walking contradiction. Hyping Mars while ignoring Earth, preaching sustainability while flying private jets." This time, the man's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile, though he still said nothing. Liam mistook it for agreement and leaned back in triumph. "See, even you know I'm right," he said smugly. "Guys like Musk are all talk. People like Muriel innovators swear, the ones building the future." The man's calm demeanor never wavered. As Liam basked in what he assumed was victory, the flight attendants passed by, each glancing at 1B with quiet respect. One even leaned in and said softly, "Let me know if you need anything, sir." Liam frowned, the interaction nagging at him. "Who is this guy?" he wondered. The flight attendant's respectful tone toward the man in 1B stuck in Liam's mind. He noticed the subtle glances from the crew, their extra attentiveness. It wasn't typical first-class treatment, it was something more. Liam tried to brush it off. Probably just some trust fund kid, he thought, but the unease gnawed at him. As the hours passed, the man continued to remain calm, flipping through his phone and occasionally jotting something down in a notebook. Liam's curiosity burned. Who was this guy? Finally, unable to help himself, Liam leaned over, feigning casualness. "All right," he said, breaking the silence. "I give up. What's your deal? You've got the flight crew treating you like royalty, but you're sitting here like some anonymous tech bro." The man chuckled softly, not looking up. "Close," he replied, his tone almost amused. "Come on," Liam pushed, his voice carrying an edge of challenge. "You can't sit there all mysterious without spilling a little. You're clearly someone." The man turned to face Liam, lifting his head slightly. For the first time, Liam caught a clearer view of his face. Something about it felt familiar. Before he could piece it together, a flight attendant approached with a practiced smile. "Excuse me, Mr. Musk," she said politely, her tone respectful. "The captain wanted me to confirm your connection in Tokyo is ready upon landing." Liam froze, the words hitting him like a lightning bolt. Mr. Musk. The hoodie, the understated demeanor, the quiet confidence. The man sitting next to him wasn't just anyone, it was Elon Musk. Liam's mind raced, replaying every word he'd said, every smug insult, every mockery of Musk's work. He'd spent the last several hours trashing a man who was not only present, but had built the very companies Liam had dismissed as hype. Elon gave the flight attendant a polite nod. "Thank you," he said, his tone warm but unbothered. Liam sat back, his heart pounding, the enormity of his misstep sinking in. Liam's face burned as he stared at Elon, the realization hitting him like a tidal wave. For the first time in years, he was speechless. Every smug comment, every mocking remark he had made about Musk's work now played back in his mind, each one a dagger of embarrassment. Elon adjusted his cap slightly, returning to his notebook as if nothing had happened. His calm demeanor only heightened Liam's discomfort. Liam cleared his throat, desperate to regain some sense of control. "So, you're, Elon Musk?" he stammered, trying to keep his voice steady. Elon closed his notebook and placed it gently on the tray table. "That's what they tell me," he replied with a faint smile, his tone light but edged with humor. The surrounding passengers, who had been subtly listening, exchanged glances. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted, the whispers of intrigue growing louder. Liam fumbled for his glass, taking a long sip of champagne to steady his nerves. I didn't mean anything by what I said earlier, he blurted out, his confidence evaporating. You know, just talking, nothing personal. Elon tilted his head slightly, studying Liam with an expression that was impossible to read. Then, with a small shrug, he said, "Don't worry, I don't take it personally." The words were calm, almost kind, but they hit Liam harder than any direct insult. For the first time in the flight, Liam found himself uncharacteristically quiet. The bravado he carried so proudly now crumbling under the weight of his own arrogance. The cabin settled into a quiet rhythm, but Liam's mind was anything but calm. He replayed the last few hours in his head, every insult, every smug comment about Musk's companies. It was a masterclass in foot-and-mouth moments. Elon, meanwhile, appeared completely unbothered. He leaned back in his seat, flipping through a book with the kind of calm confidence that only added to Liam's discomfort. Desperate to bridge the gap, Liam forced a smile and leaned over. "So, you're probably used to people criticizing you, right? Comes with the territory, I guess." Elon glanced up from his book, his expression thoughtful. "I suppose," he said, his tone measured, "but I've always believed criticism can be useful if it's constructive." Liam froze, unsure if it was a jab. Elon's gaze lingered for just a moment before he returned to his book. "Was yours constructive?" Elon asked, without looking up, the question cutting through the air like a knife. Liam fumbled for words. "Well, two didn't know it was you, obviously." Elon chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Does it matter? If the points are valid, they stand, regardless of who you're talking to." The statement hung in the air, its weight undeniable. For once, Liam had nothing to say. He slouched back in his seat, staring out the window as his embarrassment deepened. The flight attendants passed by, offering drinks with their usual professionalism, but this time, Liam waved them off. No amount of champagne could drown the sting of being put in his place so effortlessly. Liam sat in uncomfortable silence, avoiding Elon's gaze. But Elon wasn't finished. Closing his book, he turned slightly toward Liam, his tone calm but deliberate. "You mentioned Tesla earlier," Elon began. "Did you know that our driver assistance technology has helped prevent thousands of accidents? It's not perfect, but it's saving lives every day." Liam swallowed hard, suddenly feeling the weight of his earlier dismissive comments. "And SpaceX," Elon continued, "you called it reckless, but our reusable rockets have reduced the cost of accessing space by over 90%. That kind of progress isn't just about exploration, it's about survival. Protecting humanity from extinction-level events. Do you think that's a waste?" Liam's jaw tightened, but he couldn't muster a reply. Elon's tone softened slightly, but his words carried no less weight. "And yes, Twitter can feel chaotic, but sometimes chaos is necessary to drive change. Innovation doesn't come from comfort zones." The first-class cabin was eerily quiet. Even the surrounding passengers, who had been subtly listening, seemed to hold their breath. Elon wasn't angry or defensive. He didn't need to be. His words spoke for themselves, each one landing with the force of undeniable truth. Liam shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the air around him thick with a tension he couldn't escape. For the first time, he was beginning to realize how little he truly understood the scale of what Elon was doing, the conviction it required. Liam's bravado had vanished entirely. He stared at his untouched drink, replaying Elon's calm but pointed words in his mind. Every comment he had made, every insult and critique felt smaller now, irrelevant in the face of the real impact Elon had just described. Leaning over hesitantly, Liam broke the silence. "Look, I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the cabin. "I was out of line. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines, but I can't imagine the pressure you deal with." Elon looked up, studying Liam for a moment. His expression wasn't angry or smug, it was understanding, almost patient. "Apology accepted," Elon said simply, offering a small nod. "It's not easy, but progress never is." Liam's throat tightened. For once, he didn't have a snarky comeback or a clever remark. The quiet humility in Elon's response made his earlier arrogance feel even more hollow. Elon leaned back in his seat, glancing out the window. "You know," he said after a pause, "it's not about proving people wrong. It's about building something that matters. That's the real challenge." Liam nodded slowly, his usual confidence replaced by a growing sense of respect. The weight of Elon's words lingered, challenging him to rethink not just the conversation, but his own values and approach to life. As the plane continued its descent toward Tokyo, Liam found himself staring at the city lights in the distance, wondering if he had just experienced a turning point he hadn't seen coming. As the plane touched down in Tokyo, Liam remained unusually quiet. For the first time, he wasn't drafting tweets in his head or thinking about how to impress someone. Instead, he was replaying Elon's words, letting the weight of the encounter sink in. Passengers began to gather their belongings, and the cabin filled with the soft sounds of preparation for disembarkation. Elon stood, pulling his simple carry-on bag from the overhead compartment. As he turned to leave, he paused, looking at Liam one last time. "Good luck with your work," Elon said, his tone genuine and calm. "I hope it's something that makes a difference." Liam nodded, his throat tight. "Thank you," he managed, though the words felt inadequate. Elon smiled faintly, then disappeared down the aisle, flanked by discreet airport personnel waiting to escort him. Liam watched him go, still trying to process everything. As he stepped off the plane, the crisp Tokyo air hit him, and with it came a realization. This wasn't just about being embarrassed, it was about what the moment represented. Liam had spent years building his image, thriving on attention, but what had he truly contributed? For the first time, he questioned whether his work was meaningful or just noise. Elon's parting words echoed in his mind. "I hope it's something that makes a difference." Walking through the bustling airport, Liam felt a strange mix of humility and resolve. He couldn't go back to being the man he was when he boarded that flight. Something had shifted. This wasn't just a meeting with Elon Musk, it was a wake-up call. Sometimes, life doesn't just hand you lessons, it forces you to confront them at 35,000 feet.